Welcome back to my 12 Rules for Life series. Today we're covering Rule 4, which is compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. If you haven't seen the other 3 episodes in this series, basically what I'm doing is I'm taking each of Jordan B. Peterson's 12 rules from his book, 12 Rules for Life, and I'm giving a basic overview and then sharing my thoughts on it. Peterson's key argument in this chapter is, put simply, focus on yourself. By listening to the internal critic inside your head, you're able to assess what you want and let go of what's holding you back. The main talking points of this rule were the internal critic has its flaws but is certainly very helpful. You can't force yourself to do things you hate forever. You can build momentum by taking small steps at things you're willing to do and expanding your vision to detach yourself from the things you're focused on that are negatively impacting your life. As far as I understand it, the internal critic is pretty much just your inner monologue. It's the voice inside your head. And Peterson says the main problem with it is it tends to be binary. It's either good or bad, right or wrong. In reality, though, most of the time things are much more complex than right or wrong. It's a spectrum of how right or how wrong. Peterson also says the internal critic tends to compare you to the best in the niche. However, most people are in many niches, so its flaw is that it bases your entire value off how good you are in that one niche compared to the best. While these flaws of the internal critic can be harmful, they're also necessary. You need comparison to judge other things on. You can't compare something if there isn't another thing. If you listen to yourself like a stranger, Peterson argues, he says you can use your internal critic to help you, not hurt you. Peterson also goes pretty in depth on how you can't force yourself to do things you hate forever. Pretty much it's lying to yourself, which he talks about a lot in this book. The more you lie to yourself and continue doing the thing you hate, despite it all, you're just gonna go bitter and you're just gonna start hating the world. And then that leads to a whole negative cycle and it just keeps getting worse and worse. And Peterson isn't undermining the value of hard work. I mean, one of his rules is literally pursue what is eminent, not what is expedient. So that is certainly not what he's saying. What he is saying is you should focus on what matters to you, what actually matters to you, not what other people want you to do. Peterson also talks about building momentum through small changes every day. He has a checklist, which I really like, and it goes like this. Question one is, what's bothering me? Number 2 is, can I fix it? And number 3 is, am I willing to fix it? And if you answered no to 2 or 3, you should choose something else that you can or you are willing to fix. And by doing this enough, you'll make so many incremental little changes that, given enough time, you could be an entirely different person. Peterson also says that much of happiness is actually hope. And doing this, making these small incremental changes, gives you hope. It lets you know that sure, you're not making the biggest jumps possible, but you are getting better every day. And knowing that brings you a lot of happiness. It makes you very motivated. I very much agree with what he's saying here. If you've seen my habit video, that's pretty much exactly what I say or what I recommend people should do. Peterson also talks a lot about the function of vision in this chapter, both, like physiological vision and mental vision. He pretty much says, you can only see what you're aiming at. So for actual eyesight, you only see a couple things at a time, really. You have to focus in on only a handful of things at a time, or else you wouldn't be able to concentrate. And the idea is similar for mental vision as well. To see, you have to have an aim, and that aim provides purpose and value. And if you're happy, this is all fine and dandy because you're really only focusing on what is making you happy, and that's great. But if you're sad, Peterson suggests you do the opposite. You actually zoom out instead of hone in. When you do this, he argues, you expose yourself to things you regularly wouldn't see. you become more aware of the things you were previously ignoring. And then with these newfound discoveries, perhaps you could see something you hadn't before and decide to focus on that instead. The two most important things I got from this chapter are definitely that the internal critic is your friend and the power of momentum. With starting YouTube, I was really worried about a lot of things, like I don't know how to edit videos, I don't know how to film, I don't know how to make a good video, I don't know how to do really anything. But if I can just keep getting a little better each video, maybe improving one thing at a time, eventually after, 100, 200, 300 videos, they'll be pretty good. I think a lot of people can kind of perhaps demonize the internal critic because it can make us feel bad. But there can also be value in understanding why we think that way. The internal critic is kind of like your brain telling you, hey, we should do this, or maybe, we should stop doing this, or we can improve at this by doing this, and that's really good information. If you know your internal critic's tendencies and, take everything it says with a grain of salt, then I think it's a very useful tool. And on that, have a good day, guys.